What is going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am back with you for another Dolphins with Dillon. Today I have Coordinator Thursday, so all of the press conferences done with the coordinators. You got Gase, you got Darren Rizzi, you got Matt Burke, you got Dow Loggins. I think they're actually still going on as I speak, so but I'll get them all in there for you. Make sure you have those. Before I get into that, I actually do have one thing I want to talk about, and that is something that came out of Adam Gase's press conference. And so they started asking about Tannehill, and obviously a couple of the early questions, they wanted to know about his shoulder, so on and so forth, how he's doing with that. But then, they started Armando Salguero. It was about to get heated. It was funny. And I love it because just like Adam Gase, I'm sick of these questions about Tannehill because people don't take all of the factors into account, and they don't actually know what they're talking about. And he called Armando out on that. He was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You'll see in the press conference. Anyway, my point is, so he starts asking me, he's like, because he was talking about how the first 3 games of the year, Tannehill was playing really well, which he was playing great, and then Armando was like, well, then what happened? And obviously we lost to New England pretty bad, and then Cincy, whatever. And he was like, well, and then he was like, well, what about that from previous years and stuff like that? And he's like, well, he looks like the same guy. And Gase is like, no, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm the one that's there all day, every day with him. I'm the guy that sits there and studies the film, watches the film, like every second of it, every snap, every little bit about it. I know what I'm talking about. Y'all don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Shut up. Because the question started out about, Tannehill and how the fan base and a lot of the media, a lot of people are talking about how they've had enough, they've seen enough of Tannehill, and blah, blah, blah. Look, man, Tannehill is a really good quarterback, okay? See, everybody loves, and then, real quick, before I get into the defense, Armando Salguero was like, oh, but, I'm results-oriented. Okay, I get it. The only thing that anybody ever looks at with a quarterback is their win-loss. But nobody ever takes into account all the other things that go into it. Nobody takes into account the fact that, again, in the first 4 years of his career, he was the most sacked quarterback in the league. Nobody takes into account the constant change and adversity that goes on with, changing coordinators and head coaches. And this is the longest time period he's had one head coach. Except for, Philbin he had for a couple years or whatever for his first 3 years, I think. But anyway, if I remember correctly. But anyway, my point is, though, is he's got to have continuity with the coaches. Not to mention, the players around him. It's a team game. So, yes, okay, you can be results-oriented, but when the team loses, it's not just the quarterback. Okay? There's other factors that go into it. We lose our starting guard. We lose our starting left tackle. In the Cincy game, yes, we were leading and we could have won that game, but we lost our left tackle, and that's aside from the penalty, the bullshit calls in that game, the one with TJ McDonald that was absolutely ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. Aside from that, which is another factor, though, that you can't control, clearly can't control. By the way, Brock Osweiler in his interview yesterday said something about that. Quick side note, he mentioned it. He was like, whether it's a penalty or not, we got it. And look, I like the politically correct answer. Whether there was a holding or not, we got to do the right thing. Yes, okay, sure, you got to do your best. But in that situation, he did the absolute best he could. He went where he was supposed to go at the time he was supposed to go. The refs have a job to do too. So it's incredibly important, that factor. People need to throw that in there and talk about that and evaluate, that as part of the equation, right? So, but that aside, what are you going to do when you're losing, everybody? Your offensive line fucking goes out. You start losing receivers and all this other shit, right? You know, it's absolute insanity. Everybody sits there and try, you know, I'm so tired of people taking a team game and putting the entire team's faults and mistakes on one person. Like, come on, man. Let's be reasonable here. Let's stop with the bullshit. Let's stop sitting here and try and make it seem like Tannehill is the absolute, you know, worst thing that ever happened. Tannehill's the best quarterback that we've had since Dan Marino. He is. You know, and a lot of people are probably going to blow up on me and be like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. But no, I do know what I'm talking about. Not as well as, let's say, you know, the coaches and the people who are there day in and day out. But I actually pay attention pretty well. I do watch film. I do take all things into consideration, all factors. I take into consideration that he's had tremendous amount of, you know, change and turnover with his coaching staffs, and that, you know, in college, because they already had a cemented quarterback, he wasn't playing quarterback for the first couple years. He played wide receiver, but I actually think that benefits him, because then he knows the perspective of the wide receivers. It benefits him as an athlete, right? He's got good legs. He's got great arm strength. He can make all the throws, right? He does absolutely everything that you want a quarterback to do. He's really no different than, I know people are going to really freak out about this, he's no different than Brady. The difference between Tannehill and Brady is that Brady has had for fucking how long has Brady been in the league? I don't know, like 15 years or something like that, right? Something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of going off right now, so I don't care to be super accurate with that. But anyway, my point is, though, is Brady's been in the league for all these years. He's had tremendous continuity within his coaching staff. He's had a great coaching staff, and, you know, he's had good players around him, particularly his offensive line. Now, Brady is great, and Brady can do things that Ryan Tannehill can't do. Yes. I'm not trying to say that they're exactly alike, but Brady doesn't take a whole lot of shots downfield. He dinks and dunks a lot. He's very methodical, right? But he has a lot of things that Tannehill hasn't had the luxury of having, you know? And it's absolutely insane to me. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to go ahead and send y'all off to these interviews. So I hope you guys like them. I hope you guys enjoy my show. If you do, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the alerts, hit the bell if you want the alerts. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. It's at Dillon Tartaro. It's on the end screen as well, up at the top. And leave your questions, comments, concerns. I know people are going to have their own feelings about this. Look, and real quick, before I go, I'm not saying that I'm not tired of, you know, losing or the same old mediocrity and blah blah blah. I am tired of that, but it's super unfair and unrealistic to just dump everything on Tannehill. It absolutely is. Do I want them to draft a quarterback in this next year's draft? Absolutely. Do I want them to use their number one pick? Not unless Tannehill is going to legitimately have health issues from this point. Let's keep in mind that despite the fact he was the most sacked quarterback for the first 4 years of his career, having been thrown into the fire game one, you know, in his rookie season, all of that stuff with all the changeover, all of that stuff, right? Despite that, he was super durable. You know, for the first 4 years of his career, we talked about how he was like Iron Man, and he even played with, you know, during some, you know, through some minor injuries. He was pissing blood, you know, at the end of one season because he was getting so banged up. Okay, then the knee injury was just super unfortunate. It was just, you know, bad place at the or wrong place at the wrong time. It was a bad angle, and Calais Campbell's head just goes straight into his knee. That's nothing Ryan Tannehill can do, and he's been fabulous since then. Sure, you can argue that maybe they should have done the surgery sooner, whatever. Okay, but that's an entirely different argument. And he still would have been out half of last year. He just would have come back in the second half. Okay, that wouldn't have necessarily done anything because, you know, we still would have, you know, lost hella games in the first half of the season. And, you know, I mean, there was still just a god-awful amount of adversity and all kinds of crazy things happening. So anyway, my point is, it's not all Tannehill. People need to stop hating so much. He absolutely is the best quarterback that we have had since Dan Marino. And as long as, honestly, the shoulder injury does worry me more than the knee injury. His repaired knee seems to be fine. He's moving around great. His throwing shoulder, we'll have to see when he comes back. If for some reason he doesn't have the same strength and velocity and it's going to be, something that does affect his career or, is impactful enough to affect his career, okay, maybe we use, maybe then you think about using a first round on a quarterback if there's a good one at the place we're picking. But I think that we should get a quarterback in the second or third round, maybe the fourth round, depending on how they're feeling and who's available and so on and so forth, and develop them. Sure, maybe we should do that every year from, now on, period, or, for the next few years. Absolutely. But Tannehill is an above average, at least, quarterback with a ceiling much higher than people want to give him credit for, and he busts his ass, man. The things that he does for this organization, a lot of the fans and media don't give him credit or recognition for that. This dude busts his ass and he plays through so much, man. Give him the benefit of the doubt at the very least. Anyway, I'm done. That's enough of that. I'm gonna send you off to these interviews. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out. I guess we got a plus 12 out of it, but, yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is your rule on returning? I mean, I don't want to give any state secrets, but if Jakeem gets it and he's like 2 steps away from the end zone, do you think he should come out?
Yeah, it's really to really
not just Jakeem, but Sonoris.
Yeah, we handle it on it. It's really individual basis. So he treat each play like an individual event. So we kind of have rules for that play. So a lot of it has to do with game situation. It could be the team we're playing in terms of personnel. Hey, we think we have a good chance this week to maybe get a return. Obviously a lot of people have talked about the end of the game with the Rams and Packers. The ball was just over the goal line. So we're going to talk through those situations. Hey, if this one's in, we're staying in. The other day when the Houston kicked off from the 40-yard line, that was one. If that went into the end zone, I didn't care if it was 1 inch into the end zone, we were going to take a knee. So that's for an example. To start the game, had it been a yard or 2 deep, maybe a few yards, we would have maybe taken it out. But that was one of those situations. How early is it? When is it? Is it the end of the half? Is it the end of the game? Is it a possible 2-minute situation like the Packers were going to be in the other day? And I feel for that guy because, when Montgomery fumbled that ball, it's easier. It's one of those easier said than done plays. He was told, we're going to take a touchback here. Those kickoffs, which we've discussed before, the ones that land right near the goal line are very difficult for the returner because if someone's not in his ear communicating exactly where he is on the field, it's very easy for that player to get lost a little bit. And typically you're not going to catch the ball and then look down. You have to have a kind of an awareness of where you are. So in those situations, usually what we would do is probably line up on the goal line, and if you step back at all, you're going to stay in. So, I feel for him. Obviously, it was a big play in that game. That's obviously got a lot of discussion this week about that. So, but for us, it's just really on an individual basis. So, hey, when we huddle up on the sideline, hey, on this one, this is our thought process. We're either going to stay in, we're going to come out. This is kind of our yard marker. Our alignments by the returners, all those things are going to kind of change play by play.
I have seen you use, I think it was on Hard Knocks because you've been here that long. I've seen you use film from other games as teaching moments for your special teams unit. Is that something that the Montgomery situation, is that something you've used?
100%. Yeah. So what we do every week, it's actually a weekly thing. We do a thing. Usually on Saturdays, it depends on the week, but usually on Saturdays we'll probably pull about 15 to 30 plays from around the league. We call them plays of the week, and then we use those as teaching moments for the whole team.
Special teams?
Correct.
15 to 30 special teams plays?
Correct, from each week. And what we'll do is we'll use those, because what happens in the special teams world is you may have a situation that comes up, and it may be only a once-a-season thing, and you can't get reps at it, And so I could sit here and talk about it for a really long time. You can go through every phase, and there's all different crazy situations that come up in games. I know, when I was watching the Jets-Bears game the other day, and the announcer started talking about there was almost a fair catch kick. It was at the end of the half. I believe the Jets were punting. There was like 6 seconds left in a half, and in that situation, if the Bears or if the return team gets a fair catch, there's a very unique rule that you can actually get a free kick from the spot of the fair catch, and if it goes to the goalpost, you get 3 points. You never see it. It never comes up. It's a very, very odd situation. So if a team is deep in their own area with not a lot of time left in the half, there's a thing called the fair catch kick. And so if they kick the ball wherever they kick it, if you fair catch it, the fair catch rule is this. 99.999% of the time, what you see is you either run an offensive play or you get a free kick from the spot. Free kick meaning you can't bring out a tee, but you can have a holder come out and hold the ball. The kicker can take a full approach, kickoff approach, no blocking, or no. It's not a field goal formation, it's a kickoff formation. So you have to be 10 yards back, restraining area. And if he kicks the ball through the goalposts, you get 3 points. You never ever see it. It comes up once every 10 years. So, for example, I'm going to use that play in our meeting this Saturday and explain to our guys that, hey, this was a potential fair catch kick situation because you rarely see it. Now, we may have one of those come up every 4 decades, one every 40 years, but we got to be ready for it. And so in the special teams world, you have a lot of plays like that. So that's why we pull about 15 to 25 plays per week that come up, and we discuss them, and we go through them and go through the rules. I remember last week, one of the plays we had was Cincinnati. In the Cincinnati game, there's a kickoff right by the sideline, and their returner did a really good job. If the returner puts his foot out of bounds and then touches the ball while his foot's out of bounds, he's considered to be out of bounds. You get the ball at the 40-yard line. So the ball kind of rolled near the sideline inside the 10, and their returner had great awareness. He went over, got his foot out of bounds, and then touched the ball, and they got the ball at the 40-yard line. So those are just a couple of small examples, but so that's why we do that every week. Ironically enough, this past week we had just watched on Thursday morning, the day of the game, we actually just watched one of those plays, the opening kickoff, where with the 40-yard line, we watched somebody else make the mistake that morning. And then we went out that night and did it. So it doesn't always work. So the teaching doesn't always work. But so I was sitting there, I said, we just watched that this morning. So, it's one of those deals where we try to use those teaching moments throughout the league because there's a lot of unique situations that come up. And so, that's something I could, the rules, there's very unique rules, and there's a lot of, there's the gunners out of bounds and re-enter and staying in the paint and all those kind of things that come up all the time that are very unique that we try to teach from other games because we may not get them in ours,
There's a website, I don't know if it's any good, but it's Football Outsiders, and they have a special teams formula which takes into account everything. Coverage, field goal, punts, weather, everything. And right now they have the Dolphins third in the NFL. Do you feel like that's a fair representation? Would you describe the first half of the season as excellent overall?
I'm a really tough grader. I wouldn't be a very good teacher. So I wouldn't, my grading scale might be a little different. I've seen a lot of those formulas before, and there's like 4 or 5 different ones, different websites and different things, and people use different things. And, sometimes you pull one thing in and put another in. You could go from third to first and from first to 12th and one play here or there. I think, I said this to the guys after the weekend. I think special teams wise, the first half of the year, we had a lot of highlights. We did a lot of good things. I felt like we were a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. I felt like we got to just play more consistent football. We were a little bit too many peaks and valleys. We did have some great plays, and kudos for those plays. But I felt like we left some plays on the table, and I felt like we can be just a little bit more consistent all the way through. And again, I'm probably not a fair guy to ask because I'm probably the hardest on myself first, and then the player second in terms of grading. But so I don't know if I would use the word excellent. I would say good to slightly below average. No, I just that's just me. I mean, I'm fairly tough on terms of the grading scale, but so that's I've seen a lot of those. There's all different ones I've seen, and
I'll use the website that has a good grade.
Yeah, exactly. Whichever one has the highest, we'll use that one as gospel.
I gave you a B, by the way. I wanted to ask you. You've been here so long. You've been here quite a while. When you're struggling and possibly losing confidence as a team, and last year you faced a 5-game losing streak in this exact same stretch, how do you sort of inject confidence and self-awareness that, hey, the season is still alive?
Yeah, I think the first thing, no doubt about this, and we've talked about this before, is really keeping the one-game approach mentality. It's hard to do. It's certainly easier said than done, and it's certainly a little bit cliche-ish. There's no doubt about it. I get all that. However, I really think keeping the focus on one game, you guys know how hard it is to win one game in this league. It's hard to win just one game. And I think we have done, as a staff, Adam, starting with Adam and throughout the rest of the guys, is keeping the focus on the task at hand, on this game. You know, this week, right now, Jets at home, that has got to be all in. It can't be looking behind. It can't be looking ahead. It can't be any of those things. And then what happens, as you all know, is you get one, and then you kind of start going one, and you stack them, and that's how you build confidence. On the flip side of the coin, what you're talking about, on the other side, where you lose a couple in a row, it's easy to lose confidence. And I think to recenter yourself and put the blinders on and get the focus right back on the immediate task, from a confidence standpoint, all the focus has to be on the Jets. And I think all the other thing, in my opinion, and I know a lot of everybody else in the building, is everything else outside that is just noise, and we got to really keep the focus on what we're doing right now. And to get the players' confidence back and everybody's confidence back. And I don't think there's a lack of confidence in the building. I really don't. I think right now, with where we are, we'd certainly like to have a better record. Where we are, we're right in the middle of things. And I think if we just take care of the job, week to week, we're going to be in the position we want to be in here at the end. And we could certainly be a little bit better, but we could certainly be a hell of a lot worse too. And we're right in the middle of this thing with a lot of games to play. And so, there's no reason. You guys know me pretty well. I certainly don't lack any confidence, and we're going to go out there and inject that into the players every day and kind of have that same approach every day.
There is a surprise onside kick call.
Yeah.
Is that Gates saying, hey, I want to run it, or do you come to him like, this might be a good time?
Yeah, we always have a couple of them up, and you're always looking for the situation to do it in. It's obviously called a surprise onside for a reason. I've heard people say, that wasn't an onside kick situation. Well, no kidding. That's why they call it a surprise onside kick. So you don't want to do it in the most obvious of situations. We actually, I don't know. I can't get into the depth with this thing because I'm going to come across like I'm criticizing, and I don't want to do that. But I don't know if you were aware, the ball hit the wire for the camera. I don't know if you guys are aware, it hit the spider wire. It obviously wasn't seen. And it's an unfortunate situation because we actually had the play we wanted. And I feel like if it didn't hit the wire, we would have been in a much better situation to recover the ball. And then all of a sudden we have the ball at midfield, down by one score, and that whole game is different. And so I thought it was a great time to do it. There's, again, it's called a surprise for a reason. And, unfortunately, with the whole wire thing, and I've been asked a million questions about it. I mean, obviously the officials at that time didn't see it, and by the time we got a replay, they had already run another play. By the time we got video evidence, and it was too late to challenge it. And so that's really how that went down. I'm sorry?
What's the rule on the wire?
The rule on the wire is if the officials had seen it, it would have been a replay, just like the play never happened. Dead ball, replay, put the time back on the clock, and replay it down like it never happened. Ironically enough, I haven't seen one in a long time. And then if you watch the Florida-Georgia game, it happened again in their game on a punt. And their officials did see it, and they just replayed it down like it never happened. And so it is reviewable. However, we didn't get again, the whole video world, you're not going to replay something if you don't have. You're not just going to waste a challenge if you don't have video evidence. And so we didn't get a replay on the stadium board. We didn't get a replay in the booth until after they had unfortunately run a play. And so it didn't hit it by much, but it skimmed it enough to affect the ball, and the ball kind of dropped straight down instead of being wider where it was supposed to be. And so that's how that went down. So it was just an unfortunate situation. Call it what you will, but it just didn't work out. So.
How often do you say you guys practice onside kicks?
The kickers kind of have a weekly routine that they do it, and then we'll work on it. It's usually Friday, Saturday type things. We don't, we work on it, but we work on it every week. Yep. We're always going to have those kind of things up in the game plan, and what depends on when you want to use them, And that goes for all of our phases. You always have different gadgets and things that you're going to have, and it just depends on when the right time is to pull them out. Usually the right time to pull them out is when they work. Usually the wrong time to pull them out is when they don't work. So, so that's the life of a special teams coach. That's how it goes. So.
Starting to become a more consistent route runner as well, and that tree's getting bigger. And he's become a better practice player, and I think most of that's probably happened because of his confidence is growing as a player as well, and those guys in the receiver room, Ben Johnson and Sean Jefferson, have done a really good job helping him develop confidence that way, because he is like, you can feel it at practice, the energy he brings. He's excited to be there, and he knows that he can get a lot better.
When Kenyon Drake is at his best on rushing plays, What are some of the things that he is doing and he is keeping in mind?
Kenyon has a unique skill set because he's got size and speed. So when Kenyon is decisive, and he hits it downhill and he can use that speed and size, that's when he's at his best. And one of the areas that we keep working, that he needs to keep improving on it, is in the open field, and sometimes trusting his speed, because he can outrun angles and do those things, and he runs through arm tackles. He's a guy that when the ball's in his hand, he can score for you, and he's got a lot of room to grow as well as a player. But he's doing he's doing a nice job. He's a good receiver. Obviously, we move him around and trust him, and we need to continue to expand that role as well.
When you're talking about expanding roles, there's been a lot of talk from Adam about moving Devontae Parker around. Can you explain what that will do for the offense, and how do you keep Devontae consistent, considering he just produced a career game?
Yeah, that's I give Devontae a lot of credit because he showed up and did his job when we needed him to. He had a good week. We didn't get to practice, and he had to walk through and coming off an injury, but he's dialed in mentally. And the more that we get him back on the field and doing those things and get him up to speed, and just keep moving him around. He said playing X and playing Z and playing on the right and playing on the left. And the one thing he has, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is he has size. He has length, and obviously we're not the tallest receiver group, and he gives us something different that way. And we're going to keep expanding his role, and especially as he gets back going a little bit. But he's had a good week to this point, and we're excited about having him back.
When you notice that he has a good week, because Adam said that, what is the difference? What do you see?
It's Adam obviously has more experience with Devontae than I do, but he's a really good kid, but he's a quiet kid. So you see through his play, like when he starts to play a little bit, when he practices faster, when his confidence goes up, you can kind of start to feel it a little bit, and it's cool to see, and it's exciting to see, and it's a week to week deal, and we got to keep getting better. But obviously, hopefully that he can put that game and having a lot of success in the last week, and continue to build off that.
There's a lot of talk about Ryan Tannehill in terms of whether or not he has reached his ceiling. What more can Tannehill give you or show that he hasn't so far?
Well, considering we're playing the Jets this week with Brock, I'd really prefer to keep all those questions to Brock. I think Ryan did a really good job in his 5 starts. He's 3-2. No one played, in the first 3 that were judged on wins and losses at quarterback, and he got the 3 wins. Obviously, no one played well enough or coached well enough against New England. And Cincinnati had 2.5 good quarters, played 2.5 really good quarters, and then we didn't finish. And he needs to play better in those last quarter and a half. But just because the week and Brock's the starter this week, I'd really prefer to stick to Brock.
How have you guys evolved as offense to figure out Kenyon Drake's best role? Has that changed from what y'all thought it would be?
It changes week to week based on the game plan, but based on the matchups. But Kenyon's a guy that can do a lot of things, and hopefully, you go into a game and you have 250 calls on your call sheet, and a lot of times you don't get to all of them. But in the course of the game, when the matchups are advantageous, that he's a guy that obviously has matchup plays, and he's a guy you game plan around. So, we're going to keep using him in different ways in different spots, and he needs to keep improving. And he adds a lot of flexibility to the offense because he can sit in the eye or in the dot and run the ball, and he can also line up wide and beat linebackers and safeties one-on-one.
75% of snaps. That said, he has the lowest passer rating against in the league of any cornerback. Mm-hmm. Have you, a single time since he was drafted, ever discussed playing him on the boundary, and have you considered giving him some of TJ's snaps at safety? Those 2 things.
Yes.
Yes on the first?
Yes to all of it.
Okay. And have you all determined that he could be a competent NFL corner on the boundary, or is that unclear to you?
I think he has a skill set. I think, it's been a while since he's done that and played on the outside, so again, there's a level of just, again, going through that process with him and trying to figure out, again, part of it mental, in terms of what we've put on his plate. So part of it, again, it's another position you're trying to spread him a little thin at. Again, the more he shows he's capable, I think it's a physical skill set. He has the ability to do that. And he has performed well in coverage situations for us, obviously. So yeah, all those things have been discussed, and we're working through some of those things right now.
And I know obviously you're not going to say
Oh,
anything from a competitive standpoint, but with the decision with regard to whether he picks up any of TJ's safety snaps, is that something that's a possibility moving forward? If you're not willing to say it will or won't happen.
Probably not willing to say any of that, but everything's a possibility. Obviously, we're addressing a lot of things on defense right now, so I mean, everything's a possibility for us.
What was your approach? I'm just curious kind of how you think about this. What was your approach to assessing your defense over the extended break that you had? How do you go about it?
Honestly, it was funny is probably not the right word to be using right now, but Adam and I didn't really get together. We kind of, to me, we independently kind of came to the same conclusion. I felt like our biggest issue was all the explosive plays. We came in on Friday and everyone was in on Friday and did sort of our normal stuff and went through our grading process and that sort of thing. And I met with the defensive staff before we left and kind of laid a couple things out. And so I came in independently on Saturday and just took all our explosives from the season and went through that and sort of try to pinpoint exactly whether, again, it was schematic or just, player or offensive scheme, sort of where that was becoming an issue. So that's where kind of my starting point was. I felt like, even within the bad games we've been having, there were, good plays, stuff like that within them. So it was like obviously where the explosives were happening. And Thursday night we gave up 3 2-play touchdown drives. That's just silly. So, that's where I started for myself, and it was funny. Then Adam kind of circled back with me, a little bit later on, and he had kind of taken the same approach. So it was kind of interesting for me that we both kind of came to sort of that conclusion independently. So that was kind of my really approach to like, hey, I didn't necessarily think it was where it's just a consistent like play after play after play after play after play. It was like these breakdowns are happening and these big plays are being created because of it. So try to dig in at where that was happening as a starting point.
Did you find common threads, or did you find that it's everything? It's just different things?
Yeah, it's that. There's threads, obviously. The frustrating thing for me, like last week, was, for example, in the run game, we had 23 explosive runs, 12-yard plus runs. That was on our cut up reel. 12 of them came in the last 2 games. Over half. So we're averaging 1.5 in the first 6 games, and we average 6 a game in the last 2 games. So, if there's a trend like that, or what's going on and how that's approached. And some of that was there were a couple offensive runs that were kind of similar schematically that we were getting, and why we were having trouble fitting some of those runs up. So there's threads like that, you know what I mean? But, we obviously didn't play well, so we played very poorly. So I don't think that, in terms of like, this one thing was the cause of all this. Like, hey, we just stopped this one thing, that's it, you know what I mean? It was, you give up the yards you give up and the points you've been giving up. That's systemic, and there's issues at all levels that have to be addressed. So there were threads. There's obviously commonalities and some stuff, and those where you start to try to address things, but I don't think it was like, hey, this one thing is what's going on and we have to stop that.
Have you heard from Microsoft about any repairs?
No.
Obviously, that was a pretty emotional moment for you. What was going through your head right there?
I was frustrated. I was frustrated, very frustrated. Again, there's one thing to me too, like, we were just cutting guys loose. He had 5 touchdown passes and 4 of them were uncovered players. Not like, contested catches or, something got schemed up. We were just not even covering guys and dropping guys loose and getting out of things. So, as that just kept building, it was a level of frustration. Obviously, I didn't realize I was going to get captured. I slammed one last year too, and I don't think no one caught it. So it was just that, it was built up and, kind of an outlet. Unfortunately, that was the closest thing I had in my hands, and took it out on an inanimate object. So I try to
Who are the receivers uncovered?
Again, it wasn't, one player or one thing. It was. I mean, I wish I could answer that directly in terms of like, it was communication. I mean, guys are miscommunicating things, not playing techniques the way we're asking them to play techniques. I mean, it was different on every play. Like I said, it wasn't just like one thing of saying, hey, every time we're playing this thing wrong or we're doing this. I mean, there were 3 different coverages in the 3 of the touchdowns that are different coverages, different calls, different techniques, and none of them are being executed the way we need to execute them. So, but again, that's the way I look at it. That's on me. If it's not getting done on the field, I start with myself, and I have to re-examine what we're asking those guys to do, and whether it's from a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, a whatever standpoint. Even if in my mind a scheme is sound or a call is sound, and it isn't getting executed on the field, I mean, we have to address why that's happening, and if it's sometimes as if we're asking them to do something they can't do, or clearly there's things that maybe people can't pick up, or certain players can't handle certain things. I mean, it's all that stuff goes into it. So, again, it's probably the harder part. I wish it would be a lot easier. Would have been a lot easier weekend for me if it was like, hey, this one guy can't play this, or this one call is what's happening here. But again, if that's the issue, it's never going to be a 42-point, 500-yard game, whatever the heck that was. So that would be an easier fix. There's a lot of, again, at every level of the defense, kind of miscommunication, or just between groups and stuff, and really went back to sort of big picture, how everything fits together, and why we're calling the things we're doing, and why we're asking, you to do this job, because it affects how this guy does this job, and it affects how this guy covers this guy. So we had to really get back to that, and having everybody understand they're not independent contractors, and this thing all fits together, and you can't make a decision to say, I'm going to do this to try to make this play when it trickles down and affects 8 other guys or 10 other guys or whoever it is. So we really got back to that part of things this week a little bit.
What did happen, I guess, and what was supposed to happen on the long Hopkins touchdown?
We're supposed to cover him.
Like whose responsibility was Hopkins on that play?
We're supposed to have a corner take a vertical player out of that. It's a hard play, but obviously we don't have any defense that's designed to not cover anybody. Like that's stupid, So, we're supposed to have a corner. They ran a bunch route and released him over the top of it. We're supposed to squeeze to it. Visually, we saw something different from the back end. We didn't play it the way it was supposed to be played.
When we talked to Adam about the defense, and this is no oversimplification, but he said it's not the scheme, it's the players, more or less, that the plays are being called, they're just not being executed. Is that the way you see it?
Look, man, we're all to blame. And again, I think for me it goes back to a little bit what I just said. Like possibly, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the scheme. Again, we're not designing defenses to cut guys loose in the back end. We're not designing defenses to give up 50-yard runs and not fit things right. So obviously that's not what we're trying to do. We're not scheming those things up. But and I don't think that we're getting just hardcore scheme where like they're finding weaknesses in our defense in terms of schematic issues. But if players are having trouble executing what we're trying to get done, then we have to find the reasons behind that, and we have to address all of that. And whether it's the stuff that we can't call, whether it sounds great, and hey, we call this play and that's going to be a great call for us, but if it can't get executed, all right, part of that's on me. Yeah, we can keep sitting here going, wow, they should be able to do that, they should be able to do that, why aren't they doing that? But at the end of the day, if they can't, then that's something that has to be evaluated. And it's our job as a coaching staff to put our players in the best position to make those plays, and to understand what they can and can't do, what they can play, mentally what they can handle, and how they can execute that again as a whole unit. So I'm not going to blame the players. I mean, again, it's my job. It's our job to put those guys in the right spots. And again, some of it maybe to that point, but again, I always start with myself and say, hey, what am I asking these guys to do from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and if it's not getting done, then it has to be addressed from a coaching level all the way down to a player level. I mean, at some point, we can't they have to learn some shit and play some stuff. Excuse my language.
You said you were looking for common threads, and just from the naked eye, it looked like some of those busts were happening with players who are veterans. They're not new to the defense, your calls, the scheme. Is that accurate? And is that concerning?
Well, everything's concerning right now, so yes. To the second part, that'll be a short answer. Again, it was everybody. You know, I think a lot of factors. Again, it's hard to just give simple answers to this. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity going on here, but you know, yeah, there's veterans making mistakes that shouldn't be being made. You know, there's also, you know, guys pressing to make plays. Now, again, when, you know, the mentality of when things start kind of going off the farm a little bit and off the reservation, it's not, I'm going to go make the play, because, again, understanding how that unhinges everybody else. You know what I mean? So that, like, to me, you know, you're adding fuel to the fire when, you know, this guy's trying to go make a play. So, hey, I'm going to stop this by myself. I'm going to kind of turn the tide here by myself. Well, now you're getting out of position, and you're leaving somebody else hanging out to dry, and then it trickles down. Then that guy's saying, well, shoot, I got to do this. You know, I mean, that's sort of where, that's where the miscommunication, or the just sort of one guy starting it, and then all three levels of defense just it's not meshing together properly. It's all concerning to me. It's all concerning that, yeah, we have veteran guys that are doing things. And again, whether the motivation is to make a play or the motivation is something else. I mean, again, those are things that we've been going through and addressing and looking at. So, I don't know. It's all concerning to me, and we're trying to address it this week.
Like on one play, I see Bobby McCain chasing a guy, and Rashad Jones is back there, and he decides, the guy's going this way, he decides to go that way. And McCain is like,
yeah, well, also, yeah.
They've played
football for us, and they've played together, and they should be on the same page and communicating better on that, absolutely.
So are the guys just freelancing, essentially?
I wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it that. I mean, I think it's the nature. It's the same as me throwing a tablet. You know, I mean, the things start going bad, and everyone's feeling that, and everyone wants to turn it. You know, and sometimes I think again, they're competitive players. You know, no one wants to be doing what we're doing, say, Thursday night. You know, so I think sometimes that they press to make plays, and they try to kind of go a little bit out of the framework. I wouldn't say they're just doing whatever they want out there, but you know what I mean? They're trying to kind of maybe jump a route or do something different, or in the run game, hey, I'm going to just shed this guy and go make this play. I'm going to get a TFL, and that's going to kind of spark us and get us going. So, you know, I think the word freelancing just kind of has more negative intentions to me. You know, I don't think they're just saying, hey, I screw this, I'm going to play whatever I want to play. I think sometimes we pressing to make plays when, again, especially once kind of that gets rolling, you know, a little bit. So we have to play the calls. I have to make the right calls and put them in the right spot. They have to execute the calls, the techniques we're asking them to play, and we'll be fine. You know.
Are there consequences for those who do not play this game, I guess, repeatedly?
Yep.
Would that be a player's starting job?
Could be, absolutely. I mean, listen, if we'd be remiss if we didn't come in this weekend and Adam and I went through a lot of stuff and studied this and again, from a personnel standpoint to a schematic standpoint to an execution, all that stuff, if we didn't address everything and come in with answers and solutions to say, hey, this is what's going on, okay, and it's at all levels. Like I said, there's some scheme stuff that we're tweaking and trying to do some different things, and again, part of that's player base saying, okay, well, maybe this guy can do this better than some of the stuff we've been asking him to do. But if there's guys that can't do what we're doing at some point, absolutely. I mean, at some point they take ownership. You know, we're not asking them to do a lot of crazy stuff here. So yeah, I think everyone's aware of where we're at in the season, and having that mini bye week or whatever, you know, kind of having that extended weekend, and you know, I think I want to talk to some of you guys. You know, after the Detroit game, I felt like it was a blessing in disguise. Having the short week, I was like, okay, man, shoot. Like sometimes it's good, just let's move on from that. And obviously it wasn't a one-time thing, so, it was hard. It was hard having that, it would have been great having a Thursday night game and feeling good about it and having a kind of a fun weekend to kind of refresh and rejuvenate. And, so it's hard having to chew on that, for 10 days, essentially. We're going to have to, we're still eating that Thursday night game, so it was hard. But again, at some level in terms of, silver lining it, it afforded us some time to really sit down and dig into some things. So, we're still going through that process.
How tempting is it to be like, you know what I'm doing hasn't worked, I'm just going to call way different stuff? Is there danger in that?
Yeah,
I don't get, you know what I mean? Like,
no.
Way, like a big time tendency break or whatever.
Yeah, there's danger in that. I mean, listen, we spent 8 months now, whatever it's been, from March to now, training in certain techniques and doing things we want to do and trying to get these guys right and put all this work in. I mean, yeah, it'd be a little crazy to just say, hey, screw all that, let's do all this instead and ask these guys to learn all new stuff. So I don't think, again, I don't see that as the issue. I really don't. I don't see like our scheme is broken and we're screwed up and all this. Again, now we have a fairly complex scheme and we have a lot of stuff we can call. So it's more of, okay, like maybe this part of it is something that we want to lean more towards this area. You know what I mean? But to me, that would be akin to what I just talked about the players. Of me saying, well, I got to make it right. I'm gonna call this crazy stuff and fix it by doing all this stuff. And now I'm putting those guys in positions they're not used to now and getting them unhinged. And I mean, that'd be me contributing to the chaos, So we have to get better at the stuff we're asking them to do. Period. We have to play the stuff better. I have to make sure that we're asking them to do things that they can do. And when I do that, and if we have determined that they're capable of doing that, and we're asking them to do that, and then they don't, then that's on them, and they have to execute those techniques and those schemes and get this done, because it's just we obviously can't live like this.
Thank you.
Come off the ball the way that those guys have to. So I mean, it takes time.
Seems like it's not looking good for Kenny if he's still missing practice today. Where are you at with him?
We're just gonna kind of finish the week out, see if we can get him out there, see what he can do, see how he feels. I don't think he's accepting that answer. I know he's not.
Is Kenny the type of player where you would put him on the field if he has not practiced the entire week?
Yes. But I just want to make sure that we're not going to have a setback injury-wise. That's my biggest concern.
When you spent the past weekend looking at stuff, what on defense did you come to the idea of? I know guys doing their jobs is the number one priority, but anything?
Well, the biggest thing we talked about was explosive plays. Like that's where we've really been hurt the last 2 games, where teams they're able to get in the end zone with 4 or less plays, which that puts us in a bad spot. One, it's just happening multiple times, but I mean, we've really lived off the turnovers, and the longer kind of some of these drives have gone, we've been able to take advantage of a mistake and got a negative play somewhere or a turnover to where we can flip the field, and now all of a sudden we can do something on the other side of the ball. And we really haven't had that opportunity. We've been really hurting ourselves by not being on the same page, not doing our job, not finishing a play to where the other team takes advantage of it.
And assuming that Ted is healthy, I guess he was full go yesterday. Are you moving forward with him as your starter, or are you considering Wesley or Jake at all in terms of a competition there?
No, I mean we're good with where we're at right now. I mean, he took a weird shot. It was just a weird angle for him to where it just kind of, knocked him out of the game there for a little bit.
And with Jake, I guess you have a decision to make by next Thursday. Do you know at this point if you're going to bring him back this year, or is that undecided?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just take the whole time, and, when we feel whether it's, the right time and he's feeling it right and we got a chance to move him up, we're going to move him up. And anytime you can get a lineman, that's fresh, that's beneficial to us.
When you talked about how you're going to take the weekend to assess everything, including scheme defensively, how much thought, how much discussion was there about making more than a tweak to the wide nine concepts?
There wasn't a ton of discussion about anything. It was more, hey, these are the things we need to fix. Here's what we need to do. This is how we need to do it. And then we moved on from there. So that was about all the discussion there was.
Seems, and we'll talk today, but last week Matt was pretty angry with how things have gone. What kind of conversations have you had with him about keeping this thing together?
All our conversations have been about what are the solutions. You know, anybody can walk in and say, hey, this is messed up, this is wrong, or, I mean, that's great. Like, I need to go in there and say, hey, here's where I think we can do something different or better, or, you know, and that's what I'm looking for from him too, of here's how we're going to get this fixed, here's how we're going to address this. Like, that's what you want to do. Like, complaining about any of the problems, that doesn't do anything. We need the solutions.
You obviously are on the offensive side, but you felt the need to go in and say these are a handful of things that...
Yeah, I mean, that's my job. You know, I've been around for a minute, so.
What is it about Matt's approach and his process that you trust him even when you guys hit a rough patch like this?
Because, I mean, you're talking about a smart guy that's been around for a long time, that's been a very good position coach. He's done a lot of good things as a coordinator. We've had some really good games. We've had some games where I know that he wants some, whether it be calls or execution, you know, we all do at the end of the day of going, man, I wish I would have done this, you know, but that's part of the learning process, you know, and that's why it's the guys that keep learning and figuring out a way to get things fixed when it's not going the right way that are the guys you want to be around. Those are the guys that you trust. And that's what he works to do every week.
You think of him as somebody that adapts rather than someone that's bullheaded and sticks to we're doing this no matter what?
Yeah, he's not going to do the same thing over and over again and just keep getting drummed. Like, none of us want to do that. Like, we weren't doing well in offense in a lot of different areas over the last 3 years, and we just kept trying to adjust and try to figure out what works for us.
And regarding Mike Gesicki and yards after catch, I know you've talked about, you know, him not leaving his feet. He went low. He kind of got dinged. How should he proceed? Like, how does he get his yards after catch, do you think? What's the best route for him to take there?
I mean, make the right decision on whatever you do. I mean, just don't be wrong. I mean, he went when the one that he hurt his shoulder on, I mean, he went really low. And, of course, he came right back at me and said, well, I didn't leap, so I would have jumped over the guy. I would have been all right. So, but, I mean, it's just one of those things where he's a tall guy. He's a, you know, long strider. It is kind of strange, but like the way he can defend himself. What does he go low? You know, I just want him to be careful as far as trying to get up in the air too much because, you know, you saw what happened in Houston. All of a sudden he gets dropped on his head. So we just got to keep finding ways to get him to really just get north, you know, and try to get glancing blows and run through contact.
And how can his athleticism help him? I guess he's pretty fast. I mean, he's agile, but how can that help him going upfield? I mean,
well, he can run by everybody. I mean, he's fast for a guy his size, you know.
I know that Ryan's not playing this week, but I have a big picture Ryan Tannehill question, okay? There are some people, whether it's media, fans, whatever, who have made their case that they've seen enough, that they have seen enough on Ryan Tannehill. And I want to know why you maybe don't feel that way.
Well, I mean, what qualifications are we talking about with the people saying that? None. So, I mean, I don't really care what anybody else thinks.
I want to ask it in a different way. Why do you still believe? I'll take a second shot. I'll try to. Why do you? It's a question about why do you still believe that Tannehill is the.
We've made a lot of strides since we started in 2016. I mean, he had some good seasons before I got here. I know that, and we did some different stuff that year. We leaned on the running game and worked off the play action stuff. He does a great job with the zone read stuff. When you have an athletic guy that can move around as much as he can, and then his arm strength has been something that I've never been around before, where we hit like the pass we hit against Tennessee where he throws it, 50-plus yards in the air and the guy never breaks stride. I mean, he has some rare qualities that you can't find in a lot of guys, physically. And the more that he keeps playing, he keeps learning game to game. And that's something to me that puts him in a position where, where's our ceiling at? I don't think we're close to it. I think we just keep getting better, keep finding ways to maximize all his skill set, because it becomes a problem for the defense. It's hard to defend him when you don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to be zone read? Is he going to sprint out? Is he going to run a naked? Is he going to go play action? Is it drop back? Are we running the ball? There's a lot of things they got to defend.
So why wasn't it better when he wasn't hurt?
It was. I mean, the first 3 games we played pretty good. I mean, yeah, I mean, that happens. I mean, that happens sometimes in the NFL. Like, quarterbacks we play New England. That's not easy. There's a reason why they win a lot of games every year.
No, but I'm not saying you won. I'm saying, why wasn't he better?
The first 3 games?
Than what he was previously? He was the same guy.
The first 3 games he played pretty good. I mean, you're asking me that question, you don't even know what you're talking about. So it's hard for me to defend anything when you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you don't. I watch the film. I sit there. We evaluate the scheme we're asking him to do, and he does a good job on it.
I know what results are, and I know that his
That's fine.
results.
That's how you look at things. You look at everything's results to you. Like, we're going through a process because that's what it is. That's what the season is. It's about trying to get guys to trend upward. And we were heading in the right direction. We hit a speed bump with New England. And then Cincinnati, he's playing well, and then we lose our left tackle and we make 2 bad decisions.
If I may ask a non-Tannehill question, Devontae Parker, how do you keep that momentum going from career game last week with a quarterback he doesn't have any experience with to keep trending upwards?
I think really it starts in practice, which he's had 2 good days. He's executing all the things that we're asking him to do. He's practicing fast. I feel like his body feels good. And now it's just going to be, when we hit Sunday, trying to make ways that he's not getting taken away by what the defense is doing, moving him around like we keep trying to do, and expand what his route tree is, his position, flexibility, whether it be inside, outside, number 3 and a 3-by-1, like just things like that. You just want to keep him to where guys can't get a beat on him where they say he's going to be there every time.
And so why wasn't he doing that, not just this season, but before? Or was it just he was not ready to do that?
We were doing that last year where we were moving him around more. Flexibility was getting to the point where we felt really confident about it. It's just that we kind of lost, he got hurt, and then we kind of lost track of what we were doing, and we were trying to fix a lot of stuff and trying to get our balance back, and we got stagnant in a lot of the stuff that we did with him.
Adam, is this looking like the week that they're going to be back barring any setbacks?
I think we got a good chance. We really wanted to push him this week because the thing is I don't think he's going to be 100%. He's always going to have some kind of pain. We just got to figure out where is he hurting, because my biggest concern was in the run game or pass protection, was he going to be able to hold up against defensive ends that are bigger than him? And that's really was my biggest concern. It seems like things have gone well this week. I'll have a better idea probably tomorrow and Saturday as far as how he feels after these last 2 practices, because these are the more physical ones. So once we kind of get word from him on how he feels, then we can make a decision.
Does he benefit you more in the run game or the pass game?
I think he's able to do both. He was actually doing well in the run game. He got better over that span that he was playing. We had a little bit of a drop off when he went out, and then once we brought Nick back, then we had another spike to where he started doing well again.
You mentioned something, Joe, I don't know if you want to follow up on the question, where we wanted clarity. You said earlier this week that you need the defensive tackles to stop going around blocks. Is that correct, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. Can you explain what you mean by that? Are you talking about stunts, or are you talking about not being in their gap?
Well, the biggest thing that we're talking about is, one, setting the edge, and then our interior guys just understanding run-pass options, of you don't want to run around the quarterback, if you're inside especially, because now that's just going to open up massive holes inside. And then when in the run game, you want to make sure that we're fighting pressure against blocks. We don't want to just pick an edge and now all of a sudden we get inside zone and we're just running up the field. So, I mean, it's just understanding the blocking schemes and how we need to take those type of things on, which I think our guys have done a good job this week of trying to understand, okay, big picture, all right, it's not always going to be a pass. Let's make sure we're doing a good job of taking on our blocks correctly, being square, using our hands, just like all those little details that we work on every day and individual. I mean, I watch Chris do it every day. And it's just, we need to translate what we're doing in practice to the game. And if we do that, then it cleans up a lot of things.
Alright guys, you've reached the end of my video. This is the end of the interviews. I hope you enjoyed those. I hope you enjoyed my show. Also, as a whole, if you did, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Make sure you hit the like button. And please share your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. I love interacting with you guys. It's for you. This is for you. You know, and also follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. It's on the end screen. My Twitter handle is on the end screen if you need to know it. And with that, guys, I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.